Bockerman is going to run a film on wartime stories that he remembers. Raymond is 95, and we are hoping that this film will stay in our contact. Okay, Raymond, go ahead if anything.
Well, I had a low draft number, so I got drafted early in February of '41. And well, I went down there for a examination, and I thought maybe they'd forget about me. But I keep thinking about that Sergeant Bilko that was on at one time. And one time they run a bunch of guys through, and a chimpanzee got in the line, and they inducted the chimpanzee. And I think that day I went in, the chimp would have made it.
How old were you?
They weren't, pardon?
How old were you?
I was 28.
28.
And shortly after that, they quit drafting people 28. And after got in the Army, went through basic training, over to 13th Regiment, and then we went on maneuvers down in Louisiana, over in the Carolinas, and I would have been discharged if I had been on maneuvers. But after Pearl Harbor, they'd called me right back in. So I got nothing to complain about there. And
Where was you inducted in the service at?
Omaha, wasn't it?
Yeah, they sent me down to Omaha. Well, yeah, that must have been it. Where you finally hold up your hand and swear
Yeah.
you know. And then they're sent down to Fort Knox, Kentucky. See that? When they were changing over to an armored regiment, well, it used to be the 13th Cavalry. See, that's quite a history on that, but they were changing over to armored vehicles. And some of the guys that were in the company still had their cavalry boots and breeches. And I'm glad it wasn't cavalry. I didn't care that much for horses. Unlike the guy that said, when they say retreat, I don't want a horse in my way.
You was one of them that could outrun the horse then, huh?
I imagine I could have. I'd have tried it. But I got in there, and my hope was to be a tank driver, you know. Well, that's why they put farm boys in that armored regiment, because they figured they'd driven tractors, so they could drive a tank. Well, driving a tank isn't quite like driving a tractor. It's more like driving a loaded truck. And then we got sent over to Ireland. That was in the fall of '41. Now it was spring of '42. We got sent over to Ireland, North Ireland, Ulster. And then we sat over there all summer and doing some training and stuff. And I tell people that was the summer I wore a wool undershirt all summer long. Those people, they think that's a good climate, but it's always chilly.
Oh, yeah.
When the wind blows off that Irish Sea, that's cold. But
Was it damp, cold too?
oh yes,
Mm-hmm.
you get some pretty nice days. I had a comforter on my bed that had been gone too long without getting washed. And so I finally decided one weekend, on a Sunday, I went down to the latrine and filled the bathtub about a quarter full of water and got some soap and washed that comforter. And then I took it up, and we were in a stable, was where we were staying. And I hung it out the window. And there was just one corner that didn't get dry that afternoon. And by golly, it took about a week or two before that corner finally got dried out. It's just not drying weather most of the time.
Where'd you go to from Ireland?
Huh?
Where'd you go to from Ireland?
We went to North Africa. We went through Scotland and England, just a corner of them, got on a ship. I went over there on that Obituary. That was a ship that Gerhard Eisler later got out of the United States on that ship. It got a little, but it was a ship that was built more for lakes than the ocean, and consequently it didn't have much depth to it. And when the waves would roll, the ship would roll right with them.
Oh, gosh.
I was there, I was on the ocean too, I know what it's like.
Well, we spent 28 days at sea. We were out there and they were confusing the Germans, you know, as to what we was going to do. And they didn't just have the Germans confused, they had everybody confused. When we got to Africa, we docked at Oran, that's in Algeria. And up until then, I was just coasting along with whatever was going. And by golly, that first night, the German planes started coming over and the anti-aircraft got going, and boy, the sky was full of treasures. And by God, I got scared. I got so darn scared I was actually getting sick to my stomach. And I just had to get hold of myself and say, now listen, you're in this thing. There's no ethical way out. So do what's expected of you. And that settled me down, and oh, I was scared after that, but never to the extent where I was about to get sick.
I kinda know the feeling. I was there on that front line too.
Anyway, when we finally got the tank ashore, by that time, actually it was a deal between the French there and the Americans that the French was going to put up a kind of a token resistance, because after all, the Germans still had control of the French over in Europe. So they were going to put on a kind of a token resistance. That seemed crazy to me. There were people on both sides got killed, and they already knew what the end was going to be. It was ridiculous. Anyway, we got the tanks ashore and parked them, and I had me parked right under an olive tree. Great big old blue olives, you know. And God, they looked good, so I reached out and got one of them and bit into it, and that was it. I thought a while, and I thought, my God, maybe that one's spoiled. So I got another one. The same thing. Well,
That was the end of that, though.
well, they put them through some kind of a pickle. I don't know what it is.
They cut them with lye water. Always they use lye water to cure.
Uh-huh.
Just depends on how long they leave them in it, whether they're green or black or.
Yeah. Well, now, corn, hominy, they use lye in making that to get the hull of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we was just sitting there and we made several different moves, different bivouac areas. And finally, this one of them, everybody get on where we're going down the road. And most of us thought we was just heading for another bivouac area. And first thing we know, there sat a German car or a truck, communication car. And when they saw us coming, a couple of guys jumped out of that and started running. And we realized, by golly, we weren't going to another bivouac area. We was actually going into battle. God, we pulled off that road and down across the field and it had been raining for about 2 weeks, and that field had been plowed. So you can imagine what that was like, and that mud right there was really sticky. And I started out with a tank that was missing on one cylinder. It was a seven-cylinder radial motor, and a guy by the name of Biltz, he was in Nebraska too, he was in maintenance, and he had started unbuckling things so he could get at that plug and change it. And they told him, button it up, don't change it, button it up and get it going. So here we went, missing one on one cylinder. Well, got down there in darn mud, and pretty soon, it really pulled hard, and I just couldn't hack it with that one cylinder missing. So I had turned off or stopped in neutral, you know, and got out. I was getting out to get the shovel and dig some of that mud out, see if I could get going again. And about that time, well, just before that, they had tried to run some Mark III tanks by us on the road. And we got every one of them. And about that time, when I was going to get out, there was a Mark IV showed up. And them Mark IVs at that time had that German 88 in there. And that was a wicked gun. And he just started picking away at us. We could shoot up there, and you see them things hit that tank and bounce off. And there were tracers, you see them, bounce off.
Yeah.
But every time that German tank fired, somebody got it. That's all there was to it. Of course, I was about as far away from him as it could be. The rest of them had pulled up closer. And so it fired at us, and it just sounded like somebody taking a sledgehammer and hit the side of the tank. And the tank commander said, he hit us. I said, I know he did, let him have it. So he got a few more off, and it bounced off him. He fired again, and that time, boy, there was sparks and smoke flying all over inside that tank. So boy, we decided to abandon the ship right there.
Oh,
And crazy thing, we hit the ground running, you know, and get down, and there was a little depression in that field. And we got into that, you know, crawling. This sergeant was right ahead of me. And every time he'd pull up one leg and pull up the other one, his butt would kind of pop up a little bit high. And I got to thinking, God, wonder what would happen if he got nicked a little bit here. We could hear them machine gun bolts right over us. And I got to thinking maybe I was doing the same thing. That took all the humor out of it. When we finally crawled down, and where there was no depression anymore, we just get up and run as far as we could, and then drop and get our breath so we could run some more. And we finally got to a gully. It was probably 12 feet deep or something like that. And heck, that's where the rest of them were, you know. I can see that gully out ahead of me, and I was just going for all there was all I could do, and it just seemed to me there was a damn bullet right behind me. It was just about hitting me in the back. And I plowed off into that gully, and then I felt better for a while. But anyway, we just hung out in that gully. Those of us that was left, you know, hung out in that gully till it got dark. And then we got out of there and walked back to where the rest of them were. But I helped carry one of the guys that was wounded. And when it got good and dark, there was no getting anybody to relieve you. They'd walk right on by, and you'd cuss them out and ask them to relieve, and nothing happened. And my right leg just gave out on me. And pretty soon, we come to a farmstead, and we left a couple of wounded guys there, and one guy that had died shortly after. We just left them and took off from there. And pretty soon, why, they were just walking away from me. I was all by myself like that on the road. And pretty soon I heard somebody walking ahead of me. And I yelled, I said, "Who's there?" Well, it was one of our sergeants. He said, "I can't keep up with them, they're going too fast." Well, that left to us. We kept walking a ways, and we heard somebody off the road in the field walking. So we yelled and asked him who he was. Well, he was a guy by the name of Miller. And when he didn't have his shoes laced up on. So when he jumped out of his tank, he jumped out of them shoes. They stuck in the mud. And he was sock-footed, and that road had crushed rock on it. So you can see why he was walking in the field. So that left the three of us. And we went, I don't know, maybe a mile or so. And there was a Jeep sitting in the road, been abandoned. So we started going through that Jeep to see what we could find. We found a pair of shoes. So then that guy, he at least had shoes to walk in. And we kind of got into it was kind of high ground and kind of got into mountains like. And we were working our way through there. And when daylight came, we started coming on out of them mountains to the three of us. We started out of them mountains and looked off to our right, and there was a German outpost there, you know, a guy standing there, and he gave us the old Heil Hitler, and we didn't return it. We had a rifle between us, and we thought maybe we ought to take a pot shot at him. And we said, "My God, if we do, if we get him, they'll be on us like a swarm of hornets." So he's wondering what the heck to do, and about that time a fog blew in there. And boy, we started out for all across this open ground toward the river in that fog. We got the river in there, we caught up with the rest of them. They'd gotten that far and hadn't attempted to cross the river yet. And so we waited a while, and some Arabs come up there and it showed us where the water wasn't so deep that we could cross. So we started to cross there. And several guys got downstream a little bit from there and hit deeper water, and boy, they dropped their rifles right now and swam out. And there was Arabs I know standing up there. They remembered every place where somebody let go of the rifle. After we were gone, I bet they were diving for the rifle. And this one sergeant had on one of these combat outfits. They were double, blanket lined, and he filled all up with water. And when he went to walk up the bank, he had so much water in his breeches, he kept sliding back. And I pulled out my pocket knife and slit the legs on both of them breeches and let the water out so he'd get up the bank.
Jesus.
Anyway, we caught up with the rest of the outfit then, and we had to move back a ways, and they run an ambulance down there. Now, you're not supposed to do that. Ambulances are sick people, not people that's running away from fire. But anyway, we piled in that ambulance, and I looked back out of the back window, and there was a German tank back there. And I started counting how many guys were between me and that back of the ambulance. So if they shot, I wondered how many people I had to go through to get to me. Well, anyway, we got out of there, and they put us together and got replacements and more tanks. And we went from there then. And now these were the light tanks. It must have been the M3 or M4. And later on, they decided every battalion should have one company of medium tanks. And I was in A company, and the A company was chosen for that. So from there we went to the M3 medium. That was that darn thing that stood up there like a hay barn. Good targets, you know. And as we lost them, they replaced them with M4 medium. That was the one they call a Sherman tank over here.
Yeah.
I never heard of Sherman tank till I got back to the States. We just called them M4 medium. Had a 75 in the turret, but that 75 didn't have a velocity. I think it was just about the fastest it had, about 2,000 feet per second. You've got to get over 3,000 feet per second to penetrate much.
Yeah.
We finally, about the time we were done over there, that's when they got a tank destroyer, which was a 3-inch high velocity gun. And man, they could put them German tanks in their place. But, well, I saw on television not long ago, they had this guy in there, been a driver in a German tank, and he said as long as they were faced toward the enemy, he said he didn't worry because they couldn't penetrate him. That's, the Germans had us outgunned.
Mhm. Did you stay there then in North Africa for quite a while?
Yeah, until the fighting there was over. On the last day that we fought there, I lost a tank. It was down on Cape Bon, and they sent some tanks out to cut the road to keep Germans from escaping. They wanted to capture it. And there was about 3 or 4 light tanks ahead of us. And I was following them with that medium. And it was sandy. You know, it sunk into that sand quite a bit. We were chugging along there, and boy, pretty soon the sand started boiling up around us, you know. They saw us and they were trying to knock us out. And those light tanks, they just took off like rabbits. And here I am cranking along in that old medium, and I had it down low gear, and I was afraid if I tried to change, that sand I'd get stopped between gears. So I just kept my foot on the floor, and pretty soon, wham, it hit, and I looked around, and hell, everything seemed to be all right. I looked around again, and there was a white flame coming up behind the assistant driver. And hell, I knew what that was. They set our ammunition afire. So, boy, we just piled right out. I never took it out of gear or turned it off or anything. Just piled out, and the tank just chugged along until it got to the sand dune and started up the sand dune. Of course, that killed the motor. And then it just sat there, and that small ammunition was popping away just like popcorn. And every once in a while, it would, boom. That was one of them big ones going off. And pretty soon, the shell that was in the chamber, that 75, it got hot enough that it shot over that sand dune. And boy, here come back a whole bunch of mortar fire. And we were laying on the ground, and this Sergeant Raggy, he was laying right alongside of me. We were just flat as we could be. We heard one coming in, and boy, we knew it was going to be close. And when it hit beyond him, and he got a splinter across his butt, and another splinter went into his helmet and stuck in the skin on top of his head. He took off his helmet and pulled that out. And I was kidding him about that. I said, I'm glad you were a good-sized man. If you hadn't been, I'd have got some of that. In sand, a shell can land right close to you, and you can survive, because it'll sink in that sand and blow out in a cone shape. But if you're on rocky ground, boy, it'll cut you to pieces.
Spreads out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, well, that was the last day, shortly after we got hit. The Germans gave up. And it was a Jeep load up. I was going to go down to have a look at where we were, that tank that got hit. And I was in the Jeep, and they said, well, there's some of them Germans hasn't got the word yet. They don't know it's over down here. And boy, I got right out of that Jeep. I got thinking, if there was anybody down there that didn't know the war was over, I didn't want to go down and explain it to them. Well, then we laid around there in Africa for a while, and then we shipped over to Italy, Anzio beachhead. And by then, we went back to light tanks again. We got the M5 and M5A1. They had 2 Cadillac motors in them, and automatic transmission. The only thing was reverse was a manual shift. And you had to have your revolutions down to 1,000 or less to make that reverse shift, otherwise you just clash gears. They had a factory representative come up. He said he didn't know we used reverse so much. He thought we always went forward. When you go forward and get into a place that you don't think you better be in, you got to get out one way or another.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you'd want to reverse, for sure.
You spent, did you spend the rest of the time there till the war was over in the European country?
No, we got into Italy. We went through Rome, and we were supposed to get up on to Pisa and Florence, and we got too much resistance. So then they pulled back and did some reorganization. Well, I had enough points, by that time, enough points to get shipped back to the States. So I sure didn't hesitate. I didn't want to see that lean tower base.
I don't blame you.
Monte Cassino, it was a convent or something, whatever. No, they don't call it a convent, some kind of a Catholic deal, up on Monte Cassino. And we were down here and we had climbed, several of us climbed up the mountain, Wasn't anything going on that day. Climb up the mountain and look around and see. And I was with a bunch up there that was watching the bombing of Monte Cassino. Got the planes went over, and pretty soon there was nothing but dust and smoke. And the Germans were holed up there in Monte Cassino, but bombing it didn't do any good because they stayed right there in the rubble. They probably lost a few men, but those who were left were still able to fight.
Then how many years was you in the service over there? How many years altogether was you?
I think it was about 26 or 27 months overseas. I was a little over 4 years in the service.
And what rank did you carry?
Well, I had a technician 4th grade. That's 3 stripes with a T underneath it.
Yeah.
Same pay as a buck sergeant.
Yep.
But didn't have near the responsibility. And some crazy things happened too. We were over there in Italy, and we keep getting replacements. After that first battle, we got a lot of replacements. Boy, we lost quite a few guys there. And we got a replacement one time, and he was a young guy, and he was quoting things from the Bible, He was scared, that's all there was to it. You always are scared.
Sure.
And he was quoting things from the Bible. Well, we took off that day, and they put him in as my assistant driver. We took off out across a wheat field, a beautiful great big heads of wheat. And pretty soon the ground started erupting around us. They were throwing shells at us. And we thought, well, there was a kind of a embankment or a bluff. And we got over there, they couldn't see us. Well, there's always an observer out there somewhere, telephoning back and telling them where to lay them. So, you never see that gunman shooting at you.
No.
Anyway, we pulled over there by that embankment, and they were shelling, still shelling. And the tank commanders got out and got together to see what the heck we should do next. Well, this religious guy, he yelled up at the guy in the turret. He said, "Why don't you close that hatch?" He said, "I'm leaving it open because the sergeant might want in here in a hurry." And twice he asked him about that. And then the shell hit up on that bank, and there was a piece of sod. Fell right down through that open hatch and hit the turret floor. And this guy said, "Now, God damn it, will you close that hatch?" The thing was, if we'd have got a direct hit, it wouldn't have mattered whether the hatch was open or closed.
I bet that guy thought they got me.
Well, I don't know what happened to him. That's the only time I ever saw him. But I'd always tell those recruits, one thing you want to remember, there's an awful lot of bullets fired that never hit anybody.
Yeah, that's right.
Just because they're shooting at you don't mean you're going to get hit.
Don't stop you from being scared.
Huh?
That don't stop you from being scared.
That's the old blood and guts. Blood and guts, that was that.
Well, oh,
Not Patton, was it?
yeah.
Patton, yeah.
Patton.
Patton, I read one time, he said that he had learned a long time ago never to take counsel of his fears. In other words, you ain't afraid, you just get out there and do what you're doing. That's hard to do.
Yeah, I know.
God, one time there in Africa, they nailed got one of our tanks, and my gosh, another one was hit, and the company commander was out there, and that man was just as calm and talked like he was teaching Sunday school. I don't see how a man could control himself like that.
Good leader.
Yeah, that's the kind of people you need.
Yep.
That's what you need, someone to stand out there and just dare the enemy to hit you.
Yeah. I've seen a little of that too.
Another time, our tank commander, well, I'll tell you a little thing about this tank commander. The first battle we got into, it was him and two other guys out of the Boston area. They were always together. Always together. And that first battle we got in, two of them got killed. So this third one, he just wasn't worth a hoot after that. Like, he was still a sergeant, still in charge of the tank. And one time we battled it out, and so a day or two later, my assistant driver said, he said, you know, when we was battling out there the other day, he said, I looked up in the turret to see if he was firing. And he said, instead of him firing that gun, he was on his knees in the floor of that turret praying. And he said, we got to get rid of that damn fool. He'll get us killed. Well, we didn't have to get rid of him. A few days after that, they called the tank commanders together to see what was going to do next. And he refused to get back in the tank. Just refused to get back in the tank. And how he ever kept from getting court-martialed, I don't know. But they busted him down to Buck Private, put him over in headquarters company, And after that, he was just a gopher.
Lost his nerve.
Well, he lost that first battle we got into.
Yeah.
I never got too thick with anybody. When you get too thick with some guy and then he gets killed, it's pretty rough on you.
I know. I was the same way. I never really got close to anybody. I knew them, I talked to them, but I move on.
You didn't go to beer to the PX and drink beer and
If I done that, I took it back to my tent and I drank it by myself.
yeah, but some guys, you know, they go
Oh yeah.
and they play cards and they go this.
That, not for me. That just looked to me like a bunch of guys together that was asking for to get blowed up.
Well, for somebody to have to suffer in a way.
Well, these guys, if they go into town and pass, and everything like that, they were always together.
Yeah.
Play cards together.
That's a bad deal.
Did you get everything I had wrote down there for you?
I don't know.
Bud, you were supposed to think of something too.
I think he's been doing awful good.
I do too. He was going down the line really
Yeah.
good.
It's better this time than it was before.
Yes, it. Mhm.
I
Yeah,
can
I just
remember-
went through
I can
it.
remember one thing you told me about was them tanks hiding in them haystacks.
Oh, yeah. We had this Todd. He was just a lieutenant when he come to the company, but he got up to where he was Colonel Todd. And he was gonna look around and we're gonna advance, see, and it was rough ground. But anyway, some higher up came along, probably a general of some kind, and so he told him that he was going to advance. And I said, well, why don't you use a little reconnaissance by fire? You know, you take a machine gun, you think there's something in them trees, fire in there a few times. If there is, he'll probably answer it. But if you don't do that, he'll let you get about so close that he can't miss. Then he'll let you know. Well, anyway, Todd was going to advance, and this guy said, do a little reconnaissance by fire. My God, we started doing that, and haystacks began to move.
I guess I had never heard that one.
So did you shoot the haystacks then?
Well, that's what they were doing, shooting at haystacks, anything where somebody could hide. When they went shooting at the haystacks started moving.
They were there.
They were waiting for you to get closer.
You bet, they wanted us to get close.
I had a friend that was in Germany during the World War, and he told about the haystacks that they had these jet airplanes hid in. They had a lot of jet airplanes, but they was all covered up. They wasn't quite ready to use them yet. They didn't have enough training.
I've heard that.
And he said that his outfit come up on these haystacks, and by accident somebody just happened to jump onto it or something and felt something under there, and they uncovered it was an airplane, so they uncovered all the haystacks. And they said there was hundreds of them that was hidden that out in these flats in the under the haystacks, wheat stacks. He said, just thank God they got there in time.
Yeah.
And they was jets. They was that far ahead of the United States. If they'd have got them in the air, we'd have been in trouble.
Well, we weren't ready to go to war.
No?
No, it was a crazy deal.
Well, you wanna put that tank in there now sometime?
What?
Your tank?
Oh,
You forgot to tell him why that was that way.
the picture you have to see.
Then you tell him why that was name that, because you didn't the last time. But he
That's me
doesn't know what ever become of it.
standing alongside of it there.
That was you?
Yeah, that was me.
I don't know if I can get a picture of that or not.
Can I hold it
Hold,
somewhere
hold it
for
up
you?
here and let me, see if I can get it. It's a little bit too dark there.
But see that
Yeah.
name on that tank?
Yeah, I see that.
Arapahoe.
Oh,
You right there?
I see, yeah.
Arapahoe.
Do you
Well,
need
they
more light?
decided that all the tanks in A company should have a name beginning with an A. Well, Arapahoe was the first thing I could think of.
Well, yeah.
But you know, I really had to do some fast talking to get it on there.
I can't get it.
Because a lot of
You
them
can't?
guys,
Oh, shoot.
I tell them about the Arapahoe Indians, and they never heard of Arapahoe Indians. I don't know where
I
this was
thought we
taken.
got a picture last time
Yeah,
on
we
it.
did, but I think he had more light. We had more lights on, I think.
Would it help with more light?
Well, I don't know.
Cause on that other tape, wasn't there a picture?
Yeah, you
Will
got
that
it.
light come on there?
No, but that one behind him will come on. Now turn it,
Well, some of our
another, there.
other tapes that we did had some pictures on them, I thought. But maybe
Well-
is this different camera?
No, this is the same camera that I used.
I don't even remember how I got this picture. But that's the light tank, and it's the air-cooled radio motor.
Well, you can tell him that you had
See
to, but he doesn't know whatever happened to it.
the M5 and M5A1, the first Cadillac motors, they were liquid cooled. But all the rest of them, they were air cooled. They were experimenting with putting more motors on. In fact, there was a guy telling me about it was a medium tank that had 5 Chrysler motors in it.
Oh, mercy.
And he said, by God, when you had it synchronized, it would really get out and scat. But it took it was a mechanic's nightmare to keep that thing synchronized.
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah. See that?
Yeah, I know. That's what's great, cause I thought, well, you had to look through there
No,
to see it.
I got it right there. It's supposed to.
Oh,
So
yeah.
shall I hold the picture up and see if you can see it now?
Well,
Yeah, you can do
We'll-
that. and
We'll
see-
get it in light here in just a little bit. I'll take it.
some of
And see
some of
if
the people in Arapahoe might be interested in that. Having a
Oh,
tank
we're
and
getting
then
it now.
after
Come
that-
over, go over a ways.
Right there. Now, just a minute.
Back just a little so it don't blur. There you go. That's pretty good. I don't think
That-
you can see the Arapahoe
Well,
on
the
it.
man standing right beside it is Raymond.
Yes.
And the name right beside Raymond is Arapahoe. That was the name of his tank that he had while he was over in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, that looked pretty good. Well, that's neat. Yeah, I like that.
See, there's extra track on there.
I see that.
In case you hit a mine
Ooh.
and bust your tracks, and you have it for repairs. But the Germans got too smart for that. By God, they'd take them mines and pile them up 2 and 3 deep. And it took more than tracks, by God, to fix them after that.
I'll bet.
Did you ever lose a track?
Yeah, we hit a mine. Some guys' tank could walk out of the tracks, but that was just the driver wasn't doing too good. You had to keep them so tight, you know, but you tighten them too much and then you got too much drag.
Farm experience.
You know, one time we were crossing or coming in on a town and right alongside of a lake, and they stopped. You wouldn't all pile up when you stopped. You stopped good enough distance apart, So if it's gonna bomb you, after you take these 2 bombs. Well, stopped, and we had the grousers on the tanks, and they would work loose. So when they stopped, I got out and started tightening them up, and the rest of the guys was kind of getting together. And pretty soon, by golly, there was a gully went out away from us, and a shell come down that gully and hit the ground and ricocheted by. And I thought, my God, I wonder if that's meant for me. So I grabbed a wrench and I got in that tank and started it up to drive it away. And while I was starting that tank and getting it moved ahead so he couldn't see us, he fired twice more. And they didn't hit the ground. Boy, they zipped right on by. I'll tell you, I was shaking like a leaf in the wind when that was over with.
Is that light shining on his glasses now? Or
It seems to be, yeah.
that might be good?
Yeah. We're still getting a good picture.
Yeah.
We got, we got 15 more minutes on this film. If you think of something, otherwise we can cut it off anytime, it don't matter.
Well, I don't know.
I was wondering about when did you get married? When did you come home, and were you
When he
Came home in 45,
in 1945?
got married in 48.
So Mary, did you know him while he was
No,
over there fighting
no,
and
no,
carrying on?
no.
When I got back, I got a job picking corn by hand, you know, the first winter. And she was
I was a cook.
kind of a cook and bottle washer there. And of course, well, she's 12 years younger than I am. But then when I got to batching up there all by myself, eating my own cooking, I kind of remembered, by God, she was a pretty good cook. So I came down and talked the situation over with her.
Smart.
So now here you are.
Yeah, yeah. Mary's sisters had us celebrate our 40th anniversary. I kidded them about that. I said, you didn't think I was gonna live beyond that. Hell, here next September it's gonna be 60th.
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I like,
See how lucky you are she put up with you, Raymond?
Oh, yeah.
Must have done a good job, because if you could live to be 95.
Right, she took real good care of you.
Yeah.
That living a long time. There was a hospital orderly one time asked me what I caused, made me think I lived that long. And I said, your best bet is to have ancestors that lived a long time.
Yeah.
See, his folks lived, his mother lived to 94.
See, Dad was 82, wasn't he? When he passed away.
Yeah.
Well, your mother lived to be,
96.
yeah.
And my grandma on my mother's side was, I believe, 97 or 98.
I guess I better watch out. Mine didn't live that old.
My parents
Mine
died in
didn't
their
live that long
60s.
either. Did they, Mary?
My
Ours didn't
mom,
live that long either.
my mom
Every
is,
one of their 12 kids have lived longer than they ever did.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
My dad died of the heart attack in 1961. He was 67.
Well, our dad was 59.
When he died with a heart attack, yeah.
My parents were like 65, 63, and 66.
My dad was 76 and my
I
mom
thought
was
Dad was
80
58.
something, so they got up, you know.
Well, I wonder what,
Well, he
He
died.
died in 59.
He died in 59 and he was born in 51. That's right, he's 58. He's born in
You
1.
were born in 1. So he was
58.
He just turned 58.
Yeah.
58 in October, and
Because next year he'll be gone 50 years.
that's right.
In December he'll be gone 50 years.
Hmm.
Well, my brother, Richard, was 86, wasn't he? When he passed away.
Yeah.
Chet died just about 2 weeks before his 80th birthday.
And Leonard died in 74. He died when he was 74.
Oh,
Leonard, your brother
oh
Leonard.
yeah, but Leonard, he wouldn't take care of himself.
Some people just don't. I know a guy that he says, I don't care about anything about cholesterol or any of that. He said, I'm gonna eat what I like and that's it. If I die tomorrow, he said, that's what I'm gonna eat what I want and do what I want. And
Yeah, but you know,
I thought-
49 years ago, they didn't know anything about cholesterol.
That's right.
Well, I don't know. I think our folks was just hard work and worry.
I think that was,
Well, and 12 kids would drive you to your
Yeah, I
grave,
think
you know,
That's
so.
probably why I lived so long, I never worried.
I think stress does it to you a lot of times.
Yeah, but you know, in the heart, in the depression and stuff like that, 30s with a family, there was a lot of worry.
Oh, yes. Could be.
And I don't know that us kids were so ornery or got into too much trouble.
Oh, I did. I got in all kinds of trouble.
Oh,
Yeah. You've really been arrested a lot. I don't think any of us were ever arrested.
When
oh,
I
well,
was
they
over
didn't
there in
arrest
battle, you
much
know,
back in then.
I'd say, boy, if I
Everybody
lived through
stayed at
this, I'll
home.
never worry about anything again.
You lived through what?
I know that feeling too.
Huh? Lived through what?
Get in battle, you think, man, if I live through this, I'll never worry about another thing.
Well, then you sure didn't. You must have not. You didn't live by it very long.
Well, I had plenty to worry about. My God, when we were married, I tell people we started out with a net worth of about 2 bits less than nothing.
My folks didn't have anything when they were married, I guess. So they say. My mother's dad gave her a cow for a wedding gift, she said. They had a few dishes and they rented a house to live in. And when I was born, the doctor, it cost $20 for me, I guess, and Dad said he didn't get any change, and that was all the money he had, so. But he had a load of corn, so he had some corn to sell, and that was, kind of went on from there, so.
I was telling him at the hospital, I had my tonsils taken out. That was when I was in late teens. $10. There was a doctor down at the Grand Island, took out tonsils for $10.
well, yeah,
And-
but then wages weren't very
And
high.
I was bleeding enough that they decided to keep me overnight. And that was an extra $2.50.
Boy, isn't that something?
Well, yeah, but look at wages. It was just like my dad walked 5 miles to and 5 miles back during the Depression for $1 a day. And you didn't get very many wages and you had kids and stuff, and then what stuff did, it didn't take long to take that money.
My dad worked for 50 cents a day. And was tickled to death to get that much.
Well, at that time, you know, when the work was pretty well done, sometimes they'd offer to give you a room and board, and that was it. You stayed for room and board and just helped out here and there.
But people weren't afraid to work either. Now it seems like some of them don't know how to work.
Are you through?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna call it, I want to thank you for your time and a very enjoyable afternoon on this. I'm gonna shut it off now and we'll get some more DVDs made from it.
Oh,
Thank you. Go ahead.
I could tell you about a couple of guys that found out they just were kind of misfits and got out on that.
Out of service?
Yeah, they got away from the front lines.
Mhm.
One of them, he had a cleft palate. And he just insisted that a gas mask didn't fit him right. we had gas masks to begin with.
Yeah.
And it didn't fit him right, so they transferred, I don't know where they transferred him to. Off another guy. We had another guy, he got the shakes. And boy, he played that as full as he could, and he got out. I don't know where he went. But, yeah, there's some kind of tricks, and some guys don't mind doing that.
That's right.
But my God, if they got a conscience to live with, they're gonna be bothered by it.
Them kind of guys don't have a conscience.
Probably not.
Maybe the guy legitimately had the shakes, I mean, scared to death, he was shaking.
Okay, I want to shut it off, and thanks a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.